Hello world. Uh, I'm going to preface this video by saying that it's probably for over 18s, although I'll do my best not to swear. But there are some adult themes in this video. I'm also going to say that I have to credit my mum here for bringing me up properly and, to respect people's viewpoints and, respect other people in the way that you treat them, particularly in relationships. And yeah, I mean, Little Red Corvette, in my opinion, is probably Prince's most misogynistic song. I'm also going to say that I was kind of prompted to make this video by listening to 1999 the other day, which is the album that Little Red Corvette comes from, and also by watching an online Predator sting. It was called something like Nonce Has a Ferrari, Bedford Man, aged 49 or something like that. You can search it on YouTube, it's there. And again, there's nothing inappropriate in the video except that it's probably not for minors. Thankfully, this was not a real 14-year-old girl that the man was talking to, but an adult. He didn't know it, but it was an adult. And yeah, a part of the conversation said something like, well, the very beginning of the conversation said something like, how come you're not at school? And she replied, I got suspended from school. And he replied, why? For f***ing a teacher, which in grooming terms is right from the outset blaming the child for the fact that he's talking to her and the fact that he wants to do horrible, inappropriate things to her. It's an absolutely horrible grooming tactic, but we will find that in Little Red Corvette there are examples of the same thing. One would hope that Prince was talking to an adult when he was singing this. This was 1982. There was no such thing as online. But yeah, so let's have a look at these words. Let's go through systematically. I won't dwell too much on the musical structure of it. It's a very simple musical structure. I think it's basically G flat, A flat, B flat minor, G flat repeated over and over again. Sometimes the B flat minor gets changed to a D flat. I think in the chorus it's G flat, A flat, D flat. But yeah, it's very, very simple chord structure. So let's have a look at these words then. I've got my iPad here, which I'm referring to. Okay, so it starts out all the way through the song he is making this analogy of her, as in the person that he's meeting, being the Little Red Corvette, as in a car. Okay, so it starts out, I guess I should have known, and the lyrics here say should have known. Don't you dare make that mistake, people. It should have known. I guess I should have known by the way you parked your car sideways that it wouldn't last. In other words, by the way that you came on to me, that it wouldn't last. See, you're the kind of person that believes in making out once, love them and leave them fast. Well, again, this is, it's just purely insulting. It's purely insulting, okay? I guess I must be dumb because you had a pocket full of horses, Trojan, and some of them used. Now, that line there is referring to condoms, people. Okay, the most popular brand of condoms in the United States during the 80s was a brand called Trojan. And so saying, the line Trojan horse, going back to sort of Greek mythology, but it's still, it's still basically that she had a pocket full of condoms and some of them were used. In other words, that she'd probably been, making love with someone else that day. And yeah, it's a particularly grim image, really, and it's really, popping the blame for the fact that he's out meeting this person onto her, even though it's him who only wants the one night stand. But it was Saturday night, and I guess that makes it all right. In other words, it's all right for those two to be together and having this fling, basically, because it's Saturday and, people go out on Saturdays and, go to the bars and, you know, have a little bit too much and then kind of, you know, get to it, as it were. And I guess that makes it all right. Yeah, of course it does. And you say, what have I got to lose? So it's your instigation of this sexual act that's going to take place. And honey, I say, little red Corvette. In other words, you slag. Baby, you're much too fast. Little red Corvette, you need a love that's going to last. Well, you know, this is kind of, you know, placing the moral high ground upon him, which it isn't there in the first place, because he's out there, he's obviously chatting her up, he's obviously attracted to this person, he obviously wants to get on with this person. I guess I should have closed my eyes, and again, the should have, wrong. Children, do not make that mistake, even though you shouldn't be watching. Should have. I guess I should have closed my eyes when you drove me to the place where your horses run free. In other words, when you get your condom out, you know, because I felt a little idiot when I saw all the pictures of the jockeys that were there before me. In other words, this is his ego being bruised by the fact that this is a person that who basically has multiple affairs. Believe it or not, I started to worry. I wondered if I had enough class. In other words, here comes the shades of doubt in his mind, because he doesn't think he's classy enough for her. But believe it or not, in other words, you know, it's obviously placing the fact that, you know, this is a piece of trash here that I'm meeting, but I'm starting to get the collywobbles because I suddenly don't think I'm going to be good enough for this person. I don't think that maybe my sexual prowess is good enough for this person. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And the fact that he prefaces it with believe it or not, meaning that, you know, somehow or other, he is far better than her. You know, it's outrageous. But it was Saturday night, I guess that makes it all right, and so on and so forth. Oh, and you say, baby, have you got enough gas? Oh, yeah. You know, in other words, can you last? You know, are you, you know, sexually proficient enough to, you know, to satisfy me? And then he suddenly says, oh, yeah. And then did the little red Corvette chorus again. Then we have sort of the middle eight, as it were, which says, a body like yours ought to be in chains. It is ought to be in chains. It does say here ought to be in jail, but actually it's a body like yours ought to be in chains, because it's on the verge of being obscene. Move over, baby. Give me the keys. In other words, let me take over. Let me be the dominant person in this relationship, because, or, you know, relationship, you know, however long that relationship's going to last. I'm not judging people who do one-night stands, by the way, at all. What I'm saying is that if you're going to do a one-night stand, at least give the person a bit of dignity, a little bit of respect, and don't kind of like pass the blame onto them and accuse them of being the slut or the, you know, the sleep around, just because you're feeling just a tad awkward and a tad inadequate, which is obviously what he's feeling. And so suddenly, you know, in this middle eight bit, he is now taking control. Move over, baby. Give me the keys. I'm going to try to tame you, little red love machine. I'm going to try to tame you. In other words, you will no longer, you know, once I've finished with you, you'll no longer be the slut that I think you are, you know. It's absolutely atrocious. Yeah, it's awful. And then basically the chorus kind of goes on for a bit, and then suddenly he says, "Girl, you got an ass like I've never seen, and the ride, I say the ride is so smooth, it must be, oh, you must be a limousine." In other words, basically that he's enjoying it. He's enjoying it. I won't explain the ride is so smooth. If you're an adult and you don't know what that means, then look it up somewhere else. Yeah, but basically, this is, he's basically enjoying himself, and then suddenly, well, not suddenly, but then eventually this chorus kind of fades out. It is entirely misogynistic. It is, however, one of Prince's best known songs, particularly from the early 80s. And yeah, somehow or other, it escaped all the radio bans and stuff. Prince's first 3 albums were banned entirely, from sort of being played anywhere. And the record companies and what have you were just really kind of panicking and kind of begging him to write something that was vaguely radio friendly. And yes, on 1999 there are some songs that are radio friendly. Little Red Corvette, in terms of the fact that it doesn't swear, or and it uses analogies like the Little Red Corvette being her, being the girl, is it's kind of trying to sneak past any censorship that was being exercised in the 1980s. But it's still not a particularly respectful song, a very I'm going to say it again, misogynistic way of treating a sexual partner. Even if it is just for a one night stand, I think you just have to accept it for what it is. And if at the beginning of the song Prince is kind of saying, I knew that this was the situation by the way you parked your car outside. That basically he knows that that's the situation, and if you know that that's the situation, if you're going to get involved with it, knowing it for what it is, and still give the person their dignity. There's not really a lot that can be said really about the song any more than that, other than the fact that it's just basically very arrogant, and I'll say it again, misogynistic. Okay. After 1999, Prince's albums and his attitude, as it were, towards females and the and relationships and stuff, kind of got better, at least in his songs. Okay, but those first 4 albums, peoples, they are not for the faint-hearted. Okay, Controversy, which was the album before 1999, is an absolutely fantastic album. But it does have, some particularly raunchy, in the going beyond raunchy lyrics, the romantically titled Do Me Baby being one of them. Okay, so, yes, I loved Prince as a kid, as a kid, he was, one of my absolute idols. Being a kid, being only 16 or whatever, and very innocent, and I say this utterly seriously, I was a really innocent child. My kind of personal, shall we say it, sex life did not even start until I was like 21 or something like that. So, at age 16, all I thought was, this album's rude because in places Prince swears. And I didn't get all the nuances of those tracks, But obviously in my later years and stuff, you suddenly start to see it. And when you see, videos showing, deplorable people like the Bedford man getting caught in the act of, of trying to seduce people of inappropriate age, then suddenly you realise that, hold on, I was 16 and I was listening to 1999 by Prince, and there were some really horrendous attitudes being expressed in that. Yeah, in fact, was I even 16? 1982, I was 14. I was 14 years old. Do you know what I mean? And I think even now, in today's liberated age, you're saying, well, why are you being such a prude or whatever? But 14 years old, that is far too young to be exposed to that kind of thing. And there will be people who who are even at age 14 more liberated than I was, and will know what that song's all about, and will suddenly think that because the music's great and whatever, and because you love the album and what have you, that suddenly that's acceptable, and it isn't. I was on an SRE course, sex and relationship education course, when I was still working, and one of the facts that we were presented with was that in a survey, 69% of boys under 16 thought that it was okay to call a girl names if she didn't want to have sex with him. And so this is kind of underlying, what I'm saying today. This is not a piece of fiction. People, talk about computer games and stuff. Some of them are really violent and what have you. I don't play them, so I don't know. But obviously some of them are really violent, and they blame that for, kind of a lot of crime and bad attitudes and stuff. But, back in the day, and still in the day today, there are lyrics that actually, some people will, that because they idolize the person singing them, that somehow they adopt those opinions as their own. And it's not right, people. Be a bit careful when you listen to things. Have an open mind about it, and if something isn't right, even if it's by your favorite pop star or whatever, then call it out, and say, yeah, it's a tragedy that Prince is dead. It's a tragedy that he can't answer for what I'm saying here. But at the same time, that song is just a filthy attitude. Get rid of it. Chuck it in the bin. See you later. Bye bye.